Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you're watching or listening. My name is Caleb Glick. I'm a lawyer here in the great state of Texas with the Calhoun School of Law to bring you a lot of information that plenty of bad folks would rather you not have. For today's lecture, ladies and gentlemen, we'll provide another installment into our series on Mr. Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince. Now we're going on to chapter 11, so if you haven't gone back and watched chapters 1 through 10, I would highly encourage you to do so. Because even though Mr. Machiavelli's work may have not directly influenced the thinking of the founding generation, a lot of the tactics and strategies that he outlines in The Prince have been used in the past by tyrants and dictators to enslave and subjugate their citizens, have in recent times been used by tyrants and dictators, and for the foreseeable future will likely be used by tyrants and dictators to enslave and subjugate the citizens. And oftentimes, just knowing about these strategies is sufficient enough to deter tyrants from using the tactics and strategies because of that risk, that if the citizens know exactly what's going on, of course, they know the playbook, they know how to resist and ultimately overthrow that usurpacious government. So let's go ahead and jump on over to The Prince. Like I said, we're going on to chapter 11, which he titles Church States. He says this: "The last kind of state we have to look at is the church state. In this case, all the difficulties an eventual ruler must face come before he takes power. Because while you need ability or luck to take a state like this, you can hold on to it without either. Church states are upheld by ancient religious institutions that are so strong and well established as to keep their rulers in power no matter what they do or how they live. Only church leaders possess states without defending them and subjects without governing them. And even when undefended, their states are not taken off them. Even when left ungoverned, their subjects don't rebel. They don't think about changing ruler and wouldn't be able to anyway. So this is the only form of government that is secure and relaxed. But since church states depend on forces beyond the reach of human reason, I shall say no more about them. God created them and sustains them, and it would be rash and presumptuous for a mere man to discuss them. All the same, if someone were to ask me how the church has increased its temporal power so dramatically in recent times, progressing from a situation prior to Pope Alexander, where even the most insignificant rulers of Italy, hardly rated the church at all in temporal terms, to one where a pope can scare the king of France himself and chase him out of Italy and crush the Venetians, then I think it would be worthwhile sorting out the facts for the record, however well known they may already be. Before Charles, king of France, came down into Italy, the country was controlled by the Pope, the Venetians, the King of Naples, the Duke of Milan, and the Florentines. Necessarily, these powerful states had two main concerns: to keep foreign armies out of Italy and to prevent each other from grabbing more territory. The Pope and the Venetians were the most eager expansionists. The only way to hold back the Venetians was for all the other states to band together, as they did in the defense of Ferrara. To frustrate the Pope, on the other hand, they relied on the Roman barons. Since these barons were divided into two factions, the Orsinies and the Colonnas, they always had something to fight about, and with their swords drawn under the Pope's nose, they kept him weak and indecisive. And though from time to time you might get a really determined Pope like Sixtus, all the same he was never quite cunning enough or lucky enough to solve the problem. The reason was that papacies tended to be short-lived. In the 10 years, on average, that a pope was in power, he might just manage to beat down one of the two factions. But if, for example, one pope had almost finished off the Colonnas, the next would be hostile to the Orsinies, and so resurrect the Colonnas, but without quite having the time to see off the Orsinies. This is why the Italian states did not rate the pope's temporal power very highly. Then came Alexander VI, who more than any other pope in history showed what could be done with finance and force of arms. Using Valentino Borgia and taking advantage of the intrusions of the French, he made all the gains I mentioned in my discussion of Duke of Valentino. And though Alexander's aim was to make his son great, not the church, all the same his achievements enhanced the power of the church, which, after his and then Valentino's death, inherited his conquests. So on his election, Pope Julius took over a church that now possessed the whole of Romagna, and was all the more powerful because Alexander had quashed the Roman barons and their factions. He also found a new way of increasing church income, which had never been used before. Julius not only followed Alexander's lead, but went further. He aimed to take Bologna, defeat the Venetians, and push the French out of Italy. In the end, all three goals were achieved, and Julius's credit was the greater because he did it for the glory of the church, not out of private interests. He kept the Orsini and Colonna factions in the same reduced state he found them in, and though one or two of their leaders tried to change things, two obstacles held them back. The first was the church's power, which unnerved them, and the second was the fact that they had no cardinals. Cardinals are always a cause of internal division. When they have their own cardinals, these factions are never quiet because the cardinals feed party animosity both inside and outside Rome, and the barons are forced to come to their party's defense. So it's the ambition of the cardinals that prompts hostility and conflicts between the barons. On Julius's death, His Holiness Pope Leo found the papacy in an extremely strong position, and it is to be hoped that while his predecessors made the church great by armed force, he can make it even greater and more praiseworthy, thanks to his goodness and many, many other virtues. So that is all to be said in chapter 11. If you have any questions about what was said in chapter 11, maybe questions about what was said in the preceding chapters, or maybe there's a legal topic you'd like me to cover in a future lecture, go ahead and post those down in the comments, because the entire purpose of the Calhoun School of Law is to provide you with the necessary skills and information to combat any sort of lawfare that will be waged against you, your loved ones, or your hard-earned property. So please, if you have any questions at all, go ahead and post them down in the comments. Likewise, I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and if not, while you're down in the comments, go ahead and let me know how I can do better so I can best serve that purpose of helping you. I hope you'll have a wonderful day, and until I see y'all in the next lecture for the next topic, I bid you all farewell.